This is the Ben Herman Show.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We are here at Mobile Entertainment Expo and also Photo Booth Expo here in Las Vegas. I've got a very special guest, Alan Berg. What's up, man? How you going?
How you doing? What a great conference. I love being out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you are the keynote speaker, and you just had a chance to speak yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday I opened the conference.
Yeah, how'd it go?
It went well. There were, I'm guessing, 1,500 to close to 2,000 people.
Yeah, I saw the picture. I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it just because we had to prepare for our booth downstairs.
Sure.
However, I saw the photo, and it was massive.
Yeah.
Audience. Great.
Very, very great crowd. It was a great opening. Good way to start things off, and I haven't been able to see any other sessions because I've been sitting on my booth.
So. Yeah, right. So we just spoke about a couple months ago.
Yeah.
What's been new since then?
Just busy traveling around the country and around the world doing sales training, speaking, consulting. That's my world.
Yeah,
my world on an airplane, in a hotel. That's what I do.
And what are you looking forward to in 2023?
Well, what I'm most happy about is my wife, who doesn't normally travel with me, is scheduled to take about 4 or 5 trips with me this year. And that's special because I travel a lot. She's more of a homebody. And unfortunately, the first trip she was supposed to take was a cousin's wedding in California. Then I was going to Reno to do a sales training. She was going to come. We've never been to Reno. She caught COVID.
Oh,
how she caught it and I didn't, I don't know, because I'm on a plane all the time.
Yeah.
All the time, conferences, unless my immunity's better or I gave it to her. One of the two.
Oh, yeah.
So she missed that one, but we're going to be together. Actually, we're going to be in Florida next week. We're going to be in Savannah, Georgia. The month after, we'll be in Seattle in May. We'll be in Cape Cod in June. We'll be in London and Scotland in September.
Wow.
Birthday. So that is actually most exciting for me. You know, yes, I love to travel for work and I love doing what I do, but have her come with me to the places, that's the thing.
Yeah. And I know you've been quite busy also on the career front, hosting masterminds all over the country.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about the masterminds. What can someone expect at a mastermind that they attend?
A great question. Thanks. So how it started was someone wanted me to come for private training. I gave them a price. She called me back and she said, I know it's valuable. I don't think I can swing it by myself. Can I invite a few friends? I said, wow, that's a great idea. So I just gave it a name. It's a mastermind. It's a group sales training. So what's different about it than a conference? Like yesterday I spoke, I had a preset presentation. I gave my presentation. I got off stage. Sure, people can ask me questions in the hallway and stuff, but that was a presentation. Mastermind, no slides, no agenda. The people that are there drive the topics. Now, I could tell you from having done these around the world what we're going to talk about. Sales, marketing, websites, social media, getting ghosted, responding to inquiries, conversion.
Yeah.
But then people have specific questions about that. I'm having different issues with that. A master class that I do is presentations, then we dive deeper. So yesterday morning, I did a master class on conversion. So 3 hours. And there were 22, 23 people there. And we talked through, when you get an inquiry, how do you take that to conversion? I had slides. I went through the slides, but then we were stopping and talking in between them, which I didn't do yesterday. So yesterday I'm on this stage with 2,000 people. I'm not stopping to take questions in the middle of it. So these 3 different levels of what I do is fully structured. Here's your thing. Structured plus let's stop and talk and do this right now. And then mastermind, which is no structure at all.
Yeah.
So it's basically consulting with me in a group, sales training with me in a group, so people share the cost.
Yeah.
That's what.
And then a tier up from there is one-on-one.
Is one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a phone call this morning with a photography video company in Pennsylvania. She was asking about training. They'd seen me speak, that stuff like that, but they're looking for specific things, scaling and some other stuff like that. And, in the wedding and event industry, there aren't many people like me.
Yeah.
There are consultants that do business and stuff like that for any kind of business. But for people that understand our industry, my background, as you probably know, people watching may not know, I was vice president of sales at the Knot.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to scale a business, that was my world. My world as VP of sales was not getting on the phone and calling you and trying to sell you an ad for your DJ company. That was not my my world. That was my world many years ago. My world then is scanning the horizon and saying, okay, how do we take this and scale this to be the whole country?
Yeah.
And it's a different thought process. It's something you scale the business so you understand, it's okay. This works here. This works in Henderson, right? Okay, but does it work in all of Southern Nevada? Does it work? Will it fly in Reno? Will it work in LA? Will it work, right? So it's a different thing. So one-on-one consulting with me or sales training there's no off the shelf. That's what I told this one. She said, well, what are we going to do during the day? I said, we're going to talk about that. We're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because it would be irresponsible of me to take an off-the-shelf training or consulting and say, this fits you.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's really beautiful because you can fine-tune it to the audience that's right in front of you at that moment, right?
Yeah. And I work best with people just on the fly.
Yeah.
I actually was at a conference just recently, American Rental Association, and I suggested to them, why don't we do something fun besides my regular presentation? What else can I do? And they're like, what? I said, well, what if we did at lunch? Because it's lunch, and then people they're done eating and they're just kind of sitting there, right?
Yeah.
I said, what if we do Stump the Expert? They said, what's that? I said, you have an app, have people submit questions in the app.
Yeah.
And you'll ask me them on stage, and I will not have seen them, and you'll just ask me, and I'll just stand there and answer them.
Yeah.
Because that's what my world is. People call me and ask me questions. They email me, ask me questions. They text me, ask me questions.
Yeah.
So that's my life. So I did it. The only thing was, you know how buffets go. It's always I call this table up, call that table up. So they thought we're going to have 45 minutes to do this. I was going to be, this is going to be great, right?
Yeah.
So I think I was supposed to start at 12:30. So 12:30, they come over and say, listen, the buffet lines are still going. We're probably looking at 12:45. So fine, we'll start half an hour, right? 12:45 comes off, and people were still on buffet lines. I said, we're looking at 1 o'clock. I said, whatever time you give. And it ended up being like 15 minutes, maybe.
Oh, that's it?
20 minutes. But the audience loved it.
Yeah.
The audience was like, this was great, because I wasn't standing there going, let me think about that. They're asking questions, and I'm just...
Yeah.
Now, the guy asking me the questions was probably looking through and not asking ones that were too specific or whatever.
Yeah.
Because, you have an audience full of 500, 600 people. You have to do that. But it was fun. That's my world. I love that. God, what do you...
I love Q&A.
Yeah. Just hit me.
Right.
Yeah. So it was
definitely. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you are so knowledgeable, Alan. So I'd love to find out, how was your brain built over time? So I understand it's not just one mentor or one coach or one book that you read, but what would you attribute some of the biggest aha moments in your career that really have helped propel your career forward?
I think I have a curious mind. My mother said when I was a little boy, I used to take my toys apart to see how they worked. So those little cars.
My son does that.
Yeah.
He's 8.
Yeah. The car you pull back and then it goes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know how it works.
How I took it apart. Gotcha.
I said to my mother, did I put them back together? She goes, no, not usually, but now I could, because now I'm handier with that. And then it just became handy. My dad was not handy, and yet I was doing home decorating, not decorating, like building things in the house and using power tools and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't learn it from him. I just figured it out. And this was, some of you don't know this, but before the internet, there was a time when we didn't have YouTube to go learn how to do something.
True.
And there was no Home Depot. We went to the local hardware store.
Yeah,
that's what you did. And I was just curious. And then when I was in college, I was the study group leader. And I have a teacher's mind, right? So if I can teach it to you, well, then I must know it, right?
Absolutely.
And if I need to teach it to you, then I have to know it well enough to be able to do that. So these things led me to standing on stage and teaching. I played in rock and roll bands when I was a teenager, right? Yes, I had hair. Yeah, I was...
a mohawk by chance?
And I did not have a mohawk.
Okay.
Because it was more like the 80s or whatever. So
I see.
It was not quite a mullet, but I had a hair dryer. I had to blow it out.
Oh, nice. Okay, great.
I had Tom Selleck's mustache. We all did. It was like the 5 of us in the band. We had one big mustache going across. That's just it. And then leadership. Leadership has been a thing that has been a theme in my life, but not because I said I want to be the leader. And interesting thing happened when I used to own 2 franchises of wedding magazines. And when I sold them back to the franchisor because they wanted me to work for them running their Northeast sales division, they had all of us come to a meeting, the 5 sales directors, and do a personality profile called Predictive Index. So it's kind of like the DISC profile and things like that. And, you just circle words. You just do the thing. And when mine came back, it said, you often find yourself in a position of leadership, but you're not always sure how you got there. And I started thinking back through my life. So in 6th grade, I don't know if you had this, but we had the crossing guards because I was in New York City. And it was the AAA, and you had the sash with your badge. Well, I was the captain of the crossing guard.
Oh, okay.
I was the second shortest kid in the class. And if you lined us up alphabetically, I was number 2. If you lined us up by size, I was number 2. It didn't matter. I was always second in the class. It just didn't matter. And was interesting is I never said I want to be the captain of the crossing guards, but the 6th grade teacher said, of all of these kids,
Yeah.
And then we had a schoolyard monitor because I was in New York City, so we didn't have grass. We had a blacktop schoolyard. And there was a girl that was the schoolyard captain, monitor captain, and she decided she didn't want to do it anymore. So instead of giving it to someone else, he gave that to me as well. And I never thought about it as a kid. I just did it.
Yeah.
And that's been my life. I can't stand a vacuum of direction and leadership. So when it's not my turn to be the leader and there's chaos, I have to step in. It's like these people, nobody's directing here. Nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
When I was then vice president of sales at the Knot, I would have salespeople who would say, I want to be a sales director. And I told them, I said, the people that I promote are not the people that ask. The people that I promote are the people that act
And
that
right?
thing.
Yeah.
So clearly my life has been acting like a leader without saying, I want to be a leader. I want to have that position. And I just would get promoted and I would get moved. I was in advertising and I hated it. And I went into retail and never worked in retail before. And I went into retail because it paid better. Can you imagine that? Retail, the retail paid better. How bad I was getting paid.
Advertising.
At the largest ad agency in the United States. And I was getting paid minimum wage, whatever. And never worked in a retail store. So I'm the assistant manager. 6 weeks later, I'm managing the store. Right. So the same thing again.
This leadership qualities.
This has just been my life. That people say what I've also learned is to pay it forward is my resume, nothing about my resume said make him the assistant manager or the manager of the store.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a college graduate, magna cum laude in advertising and accounting, I should say, marketing and accounting. Mm-hmm. And this woman hired me, not my resume. She hired me.
Interesting.
So when it was my turn to look at resumes and look to hire people, I would try to look beyond it. Now, unfortunately, we first decide who to have interviews with based upon your resume.
Yeah.
But then once it was time to interview people, I interviewed people.
Right. Try to look for the character.
Well, your resume is what people have already given you a chance to do. Mm-hmm. It's not what you're capable of.
Yeah.
It's what you've been given a chance to do. So if you looked at my resume now, okay, you look at the last 25 plus years, it's all in the wedding and event industry. I didn't realize I was a professional speaker, even though I was.
Yeah.
Right? I'm one of 38 global speaking fellows in the world. So you look at that like, well, this is this world. But then you go back, right? And I sold Chrysler cars, and then I installed burglar alarms, and I did general contracting, and I managed a retail store, and I played in a rock and roll band. And like this crazy path, but that's where a lot of us, and it's what you've been given a chance to do. Mm-hmm. I was given a chance to install burglar alarms because I couldn't get a job in advertising. Right. And the guy knew I was going to leave when I got a job. And it turned out it was 6 months until I got a job. Yeah. And then I left. And then I didn't like that. So I went into something else. And we don't know what we're capable of until we try it.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson that I've learned as well as I can't is only a phrase you can say if you've tried.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Well, so did you have any family members or any sort of coaches in school or teachers that inspired you or showed you what a leader looked like? Or did it just come naturally to you?
I think it's by being observant.
Okay.
I pay attention to things, and we all do from our own lens. Like one of my sons is a graphic designer and an artist, and he sees the world different than we do.
Yeah.
He just does, right? My older son is a financial analyst and deputy CFO of a company. I mean, he sees the world different than his brother does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's for me seeing something and saying that's a good way to treat someone. That's a good way to lead. Or being an employee and seeing how you've been treated. So this sales director that hired me to be an assistant manager who taught me without saying the words, I hired you, I didn't hire your resume, and then promoted me. But then when she left and another director came in and he didn't like that, I asked, why? Right? Why do we do it this way? I don't know if you're familiar with it, but one of the Toyota family, Toyoda, who started Toyota.
Oh, really?
One of them was an engineer, and he's famous for asking why 5 times. Mm. So you say, okay, we want to do this. You say, well, why? And you say, well, because of this. Okay, why? And
go back down
because of why. Exactly. So I'm a why kind of person. I can do it better if I understand why we're doing it this way, not just that we're doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you that I have a better way. until I've tried your way and then go, okay, so why do we do it this way? A story I love to tell is my older son who worked for JP Chase. So he's hired as an analyst.
Yeah.
They put him in a chair like they put so many kids out of college in a chair, and 6 months later put him in another chair and another chair. And then he got hired to stay on. And in one of his chairs he's in, he's supposed to run a report that every quarter would go up to Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Chase.
Yeah.
And he ran this report, and it would take 3 weeks to create this report. And he's sitting there one day going, we're at the biggest bank in the world. And we have access to computers, right? Like most companies wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Why does it take 3 weeks? Right? So that same curious mind. So he starts saying, I think we can do it this way. So he figures it out, goes to his boss, who was probably 25 or 26, right?
Yeah.
And she could have said, do it the way that we told you. But she said, show me. So he showed her, and they ran it in parallel a few times to make sure that it would do it. And instead of doing it their way in 3 weeks, they do it his way in 6 hours.
Wow. That's incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
So the curious mind is the willingness to say, I challenge that we're doing it this way, but I have done it your way.
Yeah.
And what I didn't like as a boss, and I think what people have to understand is, don't tell someone you have a better way if you haven't walked in their shoes.
True.
Because you walk in their shoes and now you know we do it this way, and you might go, yeah, but we could do it that way. And somebody could go, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Which is what happened with my son.
Totally.
So he got whatever that gene is. He got that gene.
Yeah.
And as a consultant, it's the same thing where I'll be talking to someone and say, well, what if you did it that way? And, are people going to go, well, no, because we do it this way? Or are they willing to say, oh, well, that never thought of doing it that way.
Yeah.
Might that work? So, well, why don't we try it and see?
I love that.
I started doing Taekwondo at 39.
Okay.
Right? Is it too old? Clearly not, because I did it, right?
Yeah.
How would you know? You wouldn't know until you did it.
You tried it, right?
Right?
Yep.
No plans. I wasn't trying to be a badass or whatever. My kids did it. I thought it was fun. I thought it would be good exercise and to get to break things and, hit things, whatever. And I ended up first degree black belt at 42, second degree at 44. And
Wow.
if I hadn't hurt my back, I would have had a third degree at 46. So,
Yeah.
are you capable? How do you know? I never thought I could break 3 boards at once.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if I was 19 doing it, I'd want to be a badass. But at 39, it's like, I don't need to be a badass.
Yeah.
I'm a dad.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to, what I always tell folks is to suck at something new, to be courageous enough to suck at something new, right? To pursue something knowing that, especially when you try, there's the first excitement of, hey, this is going to work out, blah, blah, blah. But once you get involved, then nothing is as easy as it seems, right?
Right.
What has given you the tenacity to not quit and also the courage to try things new, knowing that you're not going to start off being a professional or really good at something, right?
I remember being a wallflower as a kid. I'm not going to dance. Most people now would not believe I was the little kid hanging on his mother's leg, the shy kid.
Yeah.
Hiding behind their mother. That kid, right?
Yeah.
I think we all know that. I think we have that kid, right?
Yeah.
And I came to this realization at some point that the people doing are having more fun than the people watching. And is it better to look silly on the dance floor?
Yeah.
Or be standing on the wall, tapping your foot, going, that's good music, right? And everybody else is out there dancing, having fun.
Yeah.
I was a perfectionist. I've gotten over that. I'm a recovering perfectionist. Taekwondo taught me a lot of things, a lot of mental training.
Yeah.
I don't strive for perfection. I strive to be better than I was yesterday.
Love that.
And just do that every time. So, is today's speech going to be better than yesterday's speech? I hope so. That's what I strive for. Will it be the best speech I can ever give? I hope not. Because if it's the best I can ever give, how do you top that? How do you be better than that? So that's a mantra that I've learned, and Taekwondo helped me with that, because I asked the master, are we trying to do the perfect punch, the perfect kick, the perfect form? And he said, no. I was like, well, why not? Why would you not try for that? And he said, because you can't be better than that. And I'm not trying to beat you. I'm trying to beat myself, right?
Yeah.
So that was a lesson there. And again, it took that as an adult. My uncle who passed recently was an author and a speaker, and I never tried to follow him, my only uncle.
Yeah.
And I just ended up, he was a lawyer by trade and ended up being a speaker and an author. And he would talk about finding your joy and stuff. So in the 80s, he wrote a book called You Can Have It All. His name is Arnold Patent, Patent. He was on Oprah. He was the only guest when she was in Chicago. He was the only guest for the entire episode. She flew him out from New York to Chicago.
Wow, so it was a big deal.
And then she brought him back on with Wayne Dyer, and I forget who the other guy was.
Wayne Dyer, I mean, yeah. So
Yeah,
up there,
big
for
time.
sure. Yeah, very big time.
And again, he was a speaker, as an author. I never tried to follow anything that he did, but I actually tried to read his book. So I was, I don't know, in my 20s or whatever. And I started reading the book, and he's talking about a universal energy that we all share in, and basically like The Secret, if you read The Secret, watch the movie, the laws of attraction stuff. And he says, listen, I didn't create this stuff. This is just my take on it. This is my way to say it. Right? I'm not going to be so, pompous to say that I created, laws of attraction. Whatever. So, but when I was in my 20s, I tried reading the book, and I thought he had lost his mind. I just thought law of attraction. Wow, energy, universal. Ooh, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. But then it was in my 30s, and I bought his book on audio, which was cassettes.
Yeah.
And you got this binder full of cassettes. Yeah, that's what it is. And it was his voice, and I'm driving in my car, driving around selling wedding advertising, and I'm listening to his cassettes, and I was like, okay, I get it now. Wow, I get it. And I think in life we have to be ready for that. Yeah. What was it? Mark Twain said, when I was 17, I couldn't believe how stupid my father was. And when I was 21, I couldn't believe how much he learned in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to be willing to accept that we don't know everything. And we have to be willing to be wrong, and that it's okay to be wrong. And if you didn't learn anything from being wrong, that was a problem.
Yeah.
But if you learn something from being wrong, well, then okay, then you move on.
Yeah.
I forget what his first name was, but Westinghouse, Mr. Westinghouse. Back in probably the early 1900s, some engineer did something, and it cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I know the story. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's great.
And somebody said, well, did you fire him? He said, no, I just paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for his education.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a good boss. That's like, okay, you made that decision. One of my presentations, I quote a guy, Greenblatt is his last name. He said, I've never made a bad decision. I've just had bad results.
Yeah.
Too many people are afraid to make the decision. A book I'm actually reading for the second time now called The Jolt Effect, Jolt.
Okay.
And they talk about how indecision is what's stopping a lot of people from buying.
True.
It's not the fear of, because there's errors of omission, right? I don't get that benefit because I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Or I don't have that loss because I didn't do it. And then there's errors of commission, which is, that was my fault. I did that. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And that later in my life hasn't been me. I learned that it's okay to say, yeah, that was me. I screwed up. Right. And I'll take the consequences of whatever that is.
Yeah.
And too many people are not willing to do that because they're afraid of what'll happen. I would much rather somebody came to me and said, listen, this happened with the customer. This is what I did. And I'd say, okay, listen, thank you for taking care of the customer. Next time, I think we should do this, but thank you for taking care of the customer.
Yeah.
Right? Because they took that initiative to do that, as opposed to, you have an unhappy customer because we didn't try to satisfy them.
Yeah.
I'd rather overdo it and satisfy them. I used to have a fight with our CFO at the Knot because he would talk about how much money it was costing us. And I said, do you understand long-term value?
Yeah.
Right? That customer is going to pay us next year and the year after and the year after and the year after.
Really lifetime value, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you understand that? Yeah, it's going to cost us now, but we're going to make it back over time. And, he would be like, yeah, but the make good is more, that's more than they deserve. I said, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it's going to make them really happy. And they're going to pay us back over years.
Yeah.
And that was a fight between the front line and the...
Who won the fight? Or let's not even call it a fight.
Yeah.
Wait.
In many of the cases, it was me.
Yeah.
Many of the cases, me. And many of the times because I had already done it.
Yeah.
Ask forgiveness instead of permission.
Yeah. Yep.
That's another thing. There are times we all have to decide. Is this a ask forgiveness or an ask permission time? And there are times for both. But there are other times where, like yesterday, I needed a tablecloth for my booth.
Yeah.
To cover up my books so nobody walks off with any.
Oh, yeah.
And guy helping me in the booth came back with a tablecloth, and he's like, don't ask. It's okay.
That's nice of him. Yeah.
That's fine.
That's perfect. Speaking of books, what inspired you to become an author?
So I was at the Knot, and I was the main speaker on business, not on trends and colors and styles. I really don't care. And I don't mean that arrogantly. I don't care because they're going to change.
Yeah.
Next year's color at Pantone is going to be a different color. The styles are going to change and whatever. And I'm not on that end of it.
Constantly evolving. Yeah.
Right. you have to sell the color of the year. You have to sell the style of the year. So that's my end of it.
Yeah.
And I was doing webinars every month, and I was speaking, and I was writing my own speeches and doing my own slides and everything. I was basically a department of one when it came to that. I scheduled myself, booked my airfare, I did everything.
Yeah.
And in 2011 or 2010, I started thinking, maybe I should write a book. And I was thinking of writing it under the Knot banner, as the vice president of the Knot Market Intelligence, as the speaker has been on stages, as a professional speaker member of the National Speakers Association. It's all my content.
Yeah.
And I decided not to put it under their banner, which turned out to be, serendipitous. But
yeah,
I just had this feeling like, you know what? This is my content. I'm not getting this from anybody. The Knot is not feeding me this. And again, nothing against the Knot. It's just, this is my content. So I wanted to write a book just to validate that I have content that's valuable for other people, because I think that's the only reason you should write a book, is it's valuable for other people, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. I write this book and decided not to put their name on it, which meant I had to pay everything. And then I got downsized with a whole bunch of people, and I had 1,000 books in my garage on a pallet.
Yeah.
Which was good, because if I got downsized before I had paid for the books, I might not have paid for them, right?
Yeah.
Because not spend the money. And the first book to me is, I think anybody can write a book. Anybody has information that you have that you could write. It could be a skinny book, it could be a textbook, it could be whatever. But we have knowledge. We're good at something. We're passionate about something where we could share something. And it might be poems. It might be, pictures, whatever. But we all have something in us. The second book to me made me an author, because I think all of us have one book in us.
Yeah.
And when I published the second book in the same year, which was not supposed to be the book it is. So I wrote a website book. If your website was an employee, would you fire it?
Okay.
And my next book was going to be a sales book. And I was giving a speech called Your Attitude for Success, actually going to be giving it on Monday in Phoenix. And I was asked to give this keynote, which was not my normal thing. Breakouts were my thing. I was asked to do this keynote, motivational keynote. And it's the first, maybe the only speech I've ever written that I don't remember the writing process. It was like, I'm also a musician. It's like the song that just had to come out. And I put together these different stories about people who have come up against challenges. And it could have been my son when he was 6 going to take the training wheels off his bike. And it could have been a sales rep when somebody said, I'll buy if you match that price. And somebody else who said, everybody's in a bad mood today, not realizing she was projecting negativity.
Yeah.
So put all these stories together, including some health issues that I've had weaving it through there. And people would start to tell me, actually the second time I gave this speech, I got, out of 100 people, I got 3 handwritten notes in the mail telling me I've changed their life.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow
feeling, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the first one is hard because it's fulfilling, but at the same time, it's like, wait, I don't have that power.
So the pressure.
I don't have the power to change your life because you took action that changed your life. Coming to hear me speak didn't change your life.
Yeah.
Taking action on what you heard changed your life. And then the second note and the third note, I was like, whoa. Then I went to give it at a local event in Philadelphia. And one of my sales reps who had a son who was going through some major health issues, she came to this lunch event and she said, the last thing I need to do right now is take 3 hours out of my day to come to see this, but it's Alan, I'm going to come. And
yeah.
And she said to me afterwards, I feel a sense of clarity, right? I feel a sense of clarity. I'm glad I came. And then a guy had come and he said, I didn't even know what you were talking about, but anytime you're speaking, I want to come. My sister's dying of cancer. Our family is kind of all upside down. But he said the same thing. He said, I feel a clarity now.
Yeah.
Wow, there's something here. So I turned the speech basically into a book. And the same year I published my first book, I published my second book.
I see.
And then it wasn't until maybe 2 years after that I finally published the book that I really wanted to publish, which was Shut Up and Sell More Winnings and Events.
Yeah.
Which, circling back to the training that I've gotten, the most powerful sales training I ever got was when a sales manager said to me, shut up. And the not so short story, but the short story is I was selling Chrysler cars.
Yeah.
Had no plan to sell Chrysler cars. I went from retail, and when the manager didn't want me to ask him why.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, his father had opened up a Chrysler franchise, and he said, hey, we need another salesman. You want to sell cars? And I was 21. I was like, cool. I love cars.
Yeah.
That was the interview, basically. Nailed it. Right?
Yeah, right.
And we have a saying in our family, why just do something when you can overdo it? So we like to overdo things. So they had a competition for product knowledge. Lee Iacocca thinking, I'm trying to get Chrysler out of the hole. Let's make our salespeople the most knowledgeable salespeople out there. People will buy more cars then.
Yeah.
Well, now you had tests and stuff, right? So I was always good at that kind of stuff. So I'm studying up on the product. I win the dealership. I win the region, the district, whatever, and I'll go on to the national finals. I win the national finals.
Wow.
So I am the product information champion for all Chrysler Plymouth salesmen. First competition they ever had. Got a big foam core check like at the golf course.
Yeah.
Try taking that on a plane. And I come back to the dealership. My sales manager says to me one day, Alan, you know more about these cars than anyone I've ever met in 20 years in the business. I said, thanks. He goes, good. Shut up. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you're telling people things they don't need to know. This was the sales training.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he was shadowing me. He said, you were talking to this couple and you told them about this. I said, yeah, well, they needed to know. He goes, they never asked you.
Yeah. But you had the information, so it's easy for you to...
The irony was I just won a competition because I knew everything there was to know about the car. I mean, literally, I would have people open up the product manual because we would get a binder every year and say, open to any page and ask me anything. And I'm talking crazy stuff, man. I'm talking like the hip room, leg room, and head room, front and back, in every one of our models to the 10th of an inch, right? Crazy. I mean, like crazy. Yeah. If it was in the book, I knew it. One guy opens it one day and he said to me, what's the wattage of the light bulb in the glove compartment of a Plymouth Grand Fury? I said, not in the book. He goes, you're right, it's not in the book.
Wow.
Because if it was in the book, I knew it.
Yeah.
But the sales training was, have the knowledge. He never said this to me. All he said was, shut up, you're telling people things they don't know. And I said, they needed to know this. He said, they never asked you. Listen, ask a better question and listen. So when I look back, and again, we always have better sight looking back.
Yeah.
What did I do before? What do I do after that? Before, you came in and I would start to tell you all about the car. And let me tell you about this and this. Well, what if your most important thing was, will it fit in my garage?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you about the fuel economy and I'm telling you about the trunk capacity and stuff like that. And you're like, all I want to know is it going to fit in the garage? You go into almost any car showroom, anywhere in the world, and in the middle of that showroom is their sportiest car, probably a convertible, probably red.
Yeah.
Right? And not stereotyping, but stereotyping. Most men are going to walk in, see that, and like a moth to a flame, we're going to go sit in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're going to be there like this, feeling the wind in our hair. Work with me, right? Here, work in our hair. And I used to go over and try to sell him that car.
Yeah.
And instead, I learned to go over and say, hey, thanks for coming in today. What did you come looking for? He's sitting in a convertible.
Yeah.
Don't assume that's the car he wants to buy. We window shop, right? We look at things. We go to a jewelry store and look at all the stuff we might be going to buy over here, but we're looking over here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What did you come looking for today? Right? Not making an assumption one way or another. And that was probably the most formal training I ever had. And it wasn't him saying, do this, do this. It was him saying, don't do this. You're telling them things they don't know, don't need to know. And that has informed my life with things. Somebody said to my wife one time, your husband's such a good listener. And my wife was like, my husband?
Yeah.
Because it's different, right? Like with your partner, it's different than it is, you know, it's like with your kids, it's the same thing there. My uncle, he was 93 when he passed a month or two ago. He was a life coach until he died.
Wow. And
his daughter, I have two first cousins, one of his daughters said to him one day, so Dad, do you take notes? Like you're talking to these clients, do you take notes? He goes, no. She says, do you remember all the conversations you had? He goes, yeah. She said, you can't remember what I asked you to do yesterday. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. It's a different part of your brain. It's a different... My dad's 92. He was an accountant. You start talking to him about a client from 1974, and he'll be like, oh, yeah, they had this over there. This was theirs. You know?
Yeah.
Dad, did you remember to, do what? No, I forgot. Yeah. It's a different part of your brain.
Yeah.
So for me, sales training is observation. It's like the best comedians are the observational comedians. They just see stuff and they see the funny in things. And for me, it's like as a consumer, I see the potential for other people. I'll see something in it, good or bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen some things lately where it just makes you scratch your head and go, "Who thought that was a good idea?" right?
Yep.
And then you pay that forward and you say, hey, you know what? I saw something like that, and I think you guys are doing something like that. Maybe we should do it different. Because I really feel that most of the time when you get bad customer service, if the tables were turned and you were providing that same experience to the person who was giving it to you, they wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't be like, this was okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But yet the person that doesn't smile, that doesn't make eye contact, their tone just doesn't set right. It happens all the time, and you wonder, would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
But either they're not taught that, or they're just, punching their card and going through the motions and not realizing, especially if you're like here in Vegas, if you're on tips and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, if you want to make more money, this doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
A smile doesn't cost anything.
This actually leads to a great segue for the next question I have for you, which is you have this unique perspective being able to coach people all over the world, not even this nation, but the world, right? And inherently there's human nature involved, right? There might be a little bit of mindset, but I'm curious to find out your perspective when it comes to seeing various folks and working with them for a longer duration, that you see some folks progressing faster than others. Why is that? What's the difference between those that progress, and what is the difference with the people that tend to stay stuck or, progress slower?
Well, the first thing is you have to take actions.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people get paralyzed because there's too many things to do. And they can't break it down and say, I'm just going to do these. So it's something for me, like, again, I was on the phone this morning with a potential client, and I'm telling her what we could be doing. And she said, is one day going to be enough? I said, we're going to start with one day. I said, because your head's going to explode at the end of the one day. I'm not going to give you a second day.
Yeah.
And I said, I won't want to work with you again until you've taken action on what those things are. So part of what I do as a consultant is move people forward.
Yeah.
And where we've all been, where we don't feel like we're taking any forward momentum, because I can remember my whiteboard having all the things I want to do.
Yeah.
And when you would do one, you'd go over and cross it out, take a step back, and you want to take a little pride in it.
Right. Yep.
Right. And then all you see is the other stuff, right? Like that one thing that you crossed off, and there's 39 things on there. So another great lesson that I learned, my very first National Speakers Association conference was a 3-day conference in New Orleans. And it was like drinking from a fire hose. It was great. It was whatever Kool-Aid they were serving. I took the picture and like, I really, because being a DJ is a unique world. And when you're around other DJs, you're like, you get it, you understand.
Yeah.
Being with other speakers is the same for me.
Same. Yeah.
And at the third day, conference is going to end at noon. The president of the association comes to us and he goes, listen, you have pages and pages of notes. What I want you to do is I want you to rewrite the notes and write down all the things that you think you want to do. Then I want you to write the list again in the order of priority of how you want to get those things done. And I want you to take the first 3 things and get rid of the rest of the list. Right? The problem was I had 39 things on the board. So when I crossed off one, I had the others. But here is what was so really important about this. When you do those 3 things, make a new list. Don't go to the old list.
Yeah.
The old list is what the priorities were that day.
Yeah.
When you do those 3 things, those things may not be important anymore. And what problem is, that whiteboard I had stuff that was never going to get done because it wasn't important anymore, but it didn't get taken off because it didn't get done.
Yeah.
The key was to take it off and then put the things on. So since 2007, because that was this meeting, I have gotten so much more done by having less on my to-do list.
Yeah.
I think people that have too much on their to-do list get paralyzed by that. And one of the stories I tell, and this is a good life lesson, actually made a little book of it. It's called Don't Paint the House. And it was a friend of mine, worked for the Knot. She bought a house. She and her daughter, she's a single mom, she bought the house. And every time we talk about business, I'd say, hey, how's the house coming? She goes, yeah, well, I need to paint the house. I just don't have the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And next time I talked to her, it was the same story. Don't have the time, don't have the time. So months go by, and I said to her, I said, how's the house going on? And she said, I just need to paint the house. I said, she goes, I don't have the time. I said, okay, so don't paint the house. She said, but I need to paint the house. I said, I know. I said, it's Thursday. So between now and Sunday, could you paint one wall in one room? She said, what? I said, it's Thursday. Between now and Sunday, could you paint one wall in one room? She goes, well, yeah, but, I need to patch and plaster first. I said, okay, what's Thursday, right? Like if you patch and plaster tonight or tomorrow, can you paint by Sunday? She goes, well, I have really tall ceilings. I don't have a ladder big enough, right? And this is what happens.
Yeah.
People, when we remove the roadblock, they put another one and another one, another one. So I went to HomeDepot.com and I found one of these poles with the pad painter on it.
Yeah.
And I sent her the link and I said, you don't need a ladder if you have one of these. Right?
Yeah.
I said, now let me ask you again. It's Thursday between now and Sunday. Could you paint one wall in one room? And she couldn't because she had no spackle knives, plaster, drop cloths, paint, brushes, rollers, right? You don't just paint a wall.
Yeah.
Right? So if she wanted to do that, one day she should have gone to Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, whatever,
Kind of all the
bought the supplies.
Yeah.
Get the chips with the colors, right? Get all this kind of stuff. And then you go and you buy the paint. Now you have the paint. Now you have the drop cloths, the paint, plaster, all this kind of stuff there.
Yeah.
And if you had some time, you can go patch some stuff, right? If you would break it down. But when you look at the whole project, she was trying to paint the whole house. Who's got time for that? Nobody's got time for that. So when we look at any project, making a new website, writing a book, I tell people, best lesson I learned about writing a book is don't write a book. Write words. A book is made up of words.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you have a client that's having you DJ an event, a wedding event, whatever it is, you don't just like show up and go, got all these songs,
Yep.
right? You sit back and you do your planning and you say, who's coming? Because like I talked about it, was it yesterday or maybe it's today? Three questions for every event. Who's coming? I'm sorry. What's the occasion? Who's coming? And what does success look like? I learned that from a client of mine, right? So you're looking at going, okay, the occasion is a wedding. I was at a wedding recently. The youngest person was 2. The oldest was 93. Well, you'd want to know that as the DJ, right?
Yeah.
And then what does success look like? Is it a packed dance floor? That may not be your thing. I've been to weddings that have been chill, and that was success for that couple. They wanted it to be chill.
Yeah.
So you need to know this going in, and you don't just show up and ask the questions, right? You do the preparation work.
Yep.
So I think if we look at any project and say, how can we break it down, right? Like I'm not done, but I think I've written my next book. I'm reading through the stuff to see, is it enough? Do I want to add? Do I want to change? Whatever. But how did I start? I just started writing some bullet points. People would come up to me at a booth and say, which of your 6 books has this? And I'd say, the next one.
Yeah.
And I would just say, they asked about reviews. How do you handle bad reviews? What are the most important things for reviews? Write it down. There you go. I hate to sell. Should I hire a salesperson? There's another chapter there.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did. Is I didn't sit down and write a book. I sat down and wrote sentences, bullet points, literally bullet points. And then when I was sitting on planes, well, I have some time. I would look at one of them and just start typing out. Just blah. No formatting, literally, because the program I'm using, if I hit enter, it's going to create another bullet point. And you can't do the shift enter thing. For some reason, it doesn't work. So it's literally every chapter is one paragraph. It just looks like that.
Yeah.
Editing turns it into chapters.
Perfect. Yeah, I love this. Yeah. I'd love to circle back. So in regards to the friend that was painting the house, or never painted the house, actually.
No,
Why?
maybe eventually.
Yeah. Why is it that folks, even when you give them the answer or you give them guidance and encouragement, they still add more excuses? Why is that?
Because it's easier. It's easier. The easiest thing for anybody to do is nothing.
Yeah.
And, again, the errors of omission or commission, like the book said. So if I don't take the action, I don't get the benefit, but I also don't get the negative of it, right?
Sure.
If I take the action, now I'm responsible. So if I start painting, I have to finish painting.
Yeah.
Right. And they're looking and saying, well, will I have time and all these things? The easiest thing to do is, I'm not going to be able to finish this. I'm not going to be able to do that. It's excuses. Right?
Yeah.
My dad had a heart attack at 45 and then a triple bypass, single bypass. He's 92, still kicking, despite the heart attack he had 3 weeks ago. Still kicking. Very crazy. Nobody's more surprised than him. But I remember he told me a story when I was 16, I guess, when he had his heart attack. And he went to cardiac rehab. And there was a guy there that had been running. And we live in the Northeast. It was a cold, wintry, rainy day.
Yeah.
And he said to the guy, why did you run today? He's like, it's nasty out. Why would you run today? And he said, well, if I find an excuse not to run today, I'll find an excuse not to run on a 75-degree sunny day.
That's great. Yeah.
So every day is every day. Took away the excuses. I have a bedroom in my house we turned into an exercise room. I can't blame the weather. We have a clubhouse. Our community has a clubhouse. I pay right? Might be not safer than that.
Else, yeah.
But yet I have a treadmill and a small universal and some other stuff in this bedroom because there's no excuse. I've taken away the excuse. But I had to be active in taking away the excuse. And it's just you have to be aware of what you're doing. And that comes maybe back to the 5 whys, so why can't you do that? Well, I can't do it because of this. Well, why? Right? Because, well, why?
Yeah.
Why can't you paint the house? Because I don't have this stuff. So why don't you go get the stuff? Right? Why haven't you gone and got it? Why? And the easiest thing to do is nothing.
Yeah.
Right? In the speech I'm going to give on Monday, this Your Attitude for Success, years ago, I had found this graphic that looked like a playing card, but it was a joker, but it said victim. So instead of joker, it was the victim card.
Yeah.
And we all have one because everybody's got crap.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's your crap or family crap or kids crap or whatever. Everybody's got crap. My dad had a heart attack 3 weeks ago. That was my crap then, right?
Yeah.
And do we wear that crap, that victim card on our head? Everybody got to see it. Woe is me. You know those people, right? Woe is me.
Yeah.
How things going? No matter how good things are in their life, there's, oh my gosh, they're terrible. I got cut off. Right? Or do we put our card away and go, great, things are great, right?
Yeah.
And
you'd also find the beauty in the negative as well.
Right.
A valuable lesson usually.
Right.
Something to draw from.
But can you? Or do you wallow in that sorrow? Are you the negative Nelly, right? Are you Eeyore?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead of Pooh, are you Eeyore, right? How do we get there? But everybody knows what that means, right? Everybody knows Pooh and Eeyore. So this victim card thing just became this metaphor. And I actually had them made. I actually had playing cards made with
that's great.
victim on it.
Yeah.
I'll give you one later.
Nice visual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually might be in my briefcase. But it's that same thing. What do we focus on? And we all know the people that focus on the negative and people who focus on the positive. And one of the things I'll say in this one talk is, who do you know that just being around them just lifts you up? You're always happy when they're around them, right? They're not Pollyanna like crazy, but who's just like, I just love being around them. They're great to be around.
Yeah.
And everybody, you see people, murmuring around and they say, and who do you know that just sucks the life out of you? And then you hear the crowd go, because everybody's mind goes to somebody that just tries to find the negative in everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a choice. And when you realize that it's a choice, you can realize that you can change that.
I love that.
But you have to learn that, right? I didn't realize negative language that I had. And it was didn't mean to be negative. It was cultural. So my parents would use certain phrases, and they were probably translated from Yiddish or whatever, from what point. But I'll give you an example. My parents would come visit us. They like to stay at a hotel instead of at our house because they had their private space or whatever. I was like, fine, whatever, that's what you want. So we'd have dinner, we'd hang out, then they'd go to the hotel. And as they're leaving, I'd say, we'll see you tomorrow. And my father would go, God willing. Right? Now, he didn't mean if I'm not struck dead between now and tomorrow, right? That's not what he really meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was an expression, God willing, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's such a negative thing. It's like, well, if I'm still alive, I'll be happy to see you. So I said to him, well, if I say, see you tomorrow, how about I'm looking forward to it?
Love it. Yeah.
Right? You just change that phrase. Just looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I didn't, and my wife called me out, I forget what they were, but on similar types of things. And all it was just repeating what I learned just from being around my parents.
Yeah.
And them being around their parents and stuff like that. It's this language that we have, and choose your language. And when you choose your language, I am a glass half full person. Somebody taught me, like, this bottle is full because this space here is filled with air.
Yeah.
Right? So it's full. It's not half full. It's always full.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Or, oh, it's not full. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a choice. It's a choice to do that. And some people need to be called out on it because they don't realize what the implications are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And other people know it, and that's just the world they want to live in.
Yeah.
Live in the negative world, and I don't. I've had health issues, and my victim card is away. But my thing is, live for today. Enjoy today as much as you can.
Yeah.
Plan to be around tomorrow, but live for today.
Yeah.
And if you go, no regrets. The fact that you waited, no. If today is my last day, I have lived a good life. I've done those things. I have failed miserably at things, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. So if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is that positivity or negativity is a choice. It really comes down to a choice, right? One of my mentors actually framed it, hence the word, that it's a mindset frame that you're staring at, and you can look at it however you like, just like you perceive art, right, in a positive or negative light. You like it or you dislike it, right, so forth. The second thing that I also drew from your answer is that a person that tends to progress faster in life versus another is simply by just taking action, and to distill those actions down to 3 instead of creating a full task list. Do 3 at a time. Well, and once those are done, they create new.
So I call it your today list and your to-do list.
Yeah.
There's stuff on your today list you can't avoid. You have to answer email. You have to go to the store. You have to do whatever.
Yeah.
Your to-do list is that big picture stuff. And if you keep it short, but then break each of those things down, that's it. The other mentality thing is you can't help how things and people make you feel. Like if somebody says something nasty to you or whatever, it's going to hurt, right? It's okay to hurt.
Yeah.
If you're still hurting 2 days from now, it's not their fault anymore. It's like you didn't let it go. And that's another important lesson, because we choose to hang on to that baggage or not. So, it's, again, mindset. I can choose to still be angry at that person who cut me off 2 days ago. I can still be, choose to be angry at the deer who hit my car, or the person who scratched my car or whatever. It's like, or I can choose to say, well, it's done, right? And nothing I can do about it. I've called the insurance company. I've done whatever, it's done, and move on. And that's that baggage we decide to carry with us or not. So I'm going to get these 3 things done. And if I make a mistake, it's okay, as long as I learned something from it.
Absolutely.
And I made it right. And this is another lesson we have to learn. So I remember being at the Knot, and if I'm CC'd on an email, I don't answer. If you wanted it to me, you would have put me in the 2 line, right? But I'm watching this thing going back and forth, something happening with a customer. They're trying to figure out, who was at fault and what happened and all that. And I just had to jump in. I said, excuse me, has anybody called the customer and told them we're working on fixing it? And they said, well, we're trying to figure out what happened. I said, no, I heard you, but has anybody told the customer? Because the lack of transparency to them means we're doing nothing.
Yeah.
And they never thought about it that way. So hopefully they learn from that, okay, first thing, apologize to the customer. We're working on this. Give them a realistic time frame that we can beat to get this fixed, and then go about fixing it. Then after you fixed it, find out why it went wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's the order. So hopefully they learn from that. If they didn't, that's their fault.
Yeah.
Because they've been given the lesson.
Absolutely. We have a rule in the Herman household with my kids, and even my wife as well, that you get to complain about it once, and if you haven't done anything about it, then you're not allowed to complain about it a second time.
There you go.
Right?
I love it.
But as long as you do something about it, you get to complain about it again if, you tried something and it still frustrates you.
Right.
But you lose the right to complain about it the second that you don't do anything about it.
Love it. Love it. No, but that's a great lesson for the kids.
Yeah.
It's about action, and being a parent, I don't care how many books are written about it. Being a parent is just failing and figuring it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they're still alive. Okay. All right. We're good. we're good. We haven't failed. They're still here.
Yeah.
We're good over here. And, you just figure out the style. And then how many kids do you have?
2.
Right. Yeah. Me too. So, and then you find out that they're very different. And then we'll work with that one. Doesn't work with that one. It's like,
we already see it now.
Yeah.
Complete opposite. Sounds like yours is.
Oh, yeah. Graphic design.
Left brain, right brain.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm both.
Yeah.
My wife is right brain creative. My younger son, right brain creative. My older son, left brain analytical. And I fall between them because I'm both musical and creative in certain ways, and I'm also analytical.
Yeah.
And my parents, my father's an accountant. My mother was very creative and musical and artistic. So I feel like I got both of their brains, as opposed to my sons who kind of went whoop.
Yeah.
Over there. But, it's really interesting when we realize that other people don't see the world the way that we do. Looking at the exact same thing, they don't see the world that we do.
Well, it's so tricky for us, right? Because we all see the world through our own lens.
That's it.
And it's very easy for us to be fooled that, because we see it this way, everybody must see it this way.
Of course.
And
of course.
It's simply not the truth.
Yeah. And it's really, my 2 sons, when you look at things like my younger son, he's an artist. And when it was even a little boy, my wife would say, draw a picture of mommy.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd look. Right? And my older son would be taking inventory. Okay, she's got 2 eyes, she's got 2 ears, she's got a nose and a mouth, right? Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Stick figure, we're done, right? And he'd look and he'd be like, okay, well, she's wearing earrings and the earrings look like this, right? And her glasses and whatever. And it just sees the world differently.
Strengths and weaknesses, yeah.
Yeah. And, but it's his lens was focused on that.
Yeah.
Where the older one was like, okay, she's got a face. The face is round. And, well, no, it's not really round, right? It's more oval in people's faces. And it might, like your jawline and my jawline are different, right?
Yeah.
And my older son wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
My younger son would.
Gotcha.
But then it's also like music. My younger son and I, we hear a piece of music and we sit down at the piano or the guitar or whatever and we play it.
Yeah.
Because we hear that and it speaks to us that way. My older son, good musician, but he kind of needs the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just different.
Definitely.
So.
Well, I've really enjoyed spending time with you and just sharing this amazing conversation. Your brain is just so interesting. And so I just love hearing the things that you have to share. I'd love to find out, and if you could share with the listeners as well, where can people find out more about your masterminds, your workshops, also your upcoming book as well?
Yep. So my website's the best place to start, alanberg.com, just my name, ALANBERG.com. My podcast is the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. Don't let the title fool you. It's not about weddings. It's about life and business. It's kind of like with my books. I'll write down a little thought and I'll just say, here it is. With perfection, we talked about that before.
Yep.
A guy emailed me this morning, a guy I've known for years, photographer in New Jersey. And he said, I'm a perfectionist and I think it's hurting me. He said, would you do a podcast about that? And I looked it up. I said, I did one. I said, okay, here's the episode. Go listen to this.
Oh, perfect.
And it's probably 5 or 7 minutes of just talking about how, perfection is the enemy of profitability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Customers don't pay us for perfection. They pay us for results.
Yeah.
And those results are not perfect. Those results are met or exceeded. And that's what they pay us for. So the podcast, Wedding Business Solutions, my books are all on my website. You just go to shopalanberg.com. If you prefer Audible, my books are all on Audible in my voice. They're all on Kindle. Todos mis libros disponibles en español. That's another thing, by the way. We didn't talk about that, but I taught myself Spanish,
right? Yeah.
and French.
Oh, trilingual.
Trilingual. So as today was a Duolingo 778 days straight of doing French.
Wow.
I need more practice in conversation. Spanish, I'm good, but
yeah.
French, I'm good in writing, and then if you start talking to me in French, my brain goes like, there's a delay. It's like that. It's like lag on a game.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you
loading.
Yeah, you spoke to me. It's like, okay, let me tell you that. I know what you said. Okay, yeah, I got this over here.
Either way, very impressive.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me on. I love chatting with you as well. And if there's anything I can help you with, consulting, speaking, training, reach out to me. I'd love to help you.
Perfect. And make sure to follow Alan Berg on social media as well.